All right. Good evening, everyone. It is Tuesday, October the 8th, 2024, 6:01. I will call our meeting of the Keystone Heights Airport Authority to order and ask you to please stand for prayer and then Pledge of Allegiance. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we pause to give you praise. We give you thanks for all of the love and the grace and the mercy that you extend to us. Thank you for the freedom we exercise tonight to meet as a board and do the work of the airport. Lord, our prayer tonight is for all of these first responders, our military, the Guard. Lord, we just ask that you watch over them as they prepare and are in this storm, our utility personnel as well. Father, be with them, keep them safe. Lord, we ask you to give us wisdom tonight as we do the business of the airport. And all these things we give you praise. Amen.
Amen.
Join me as I lead the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. And before we do roll call, I'm going to ask Mayor Rodenroth to swear in General Eifert. He has been appointed at by the City Council to fill a seat. So, Mayor, if General Eifert, if you'd come over here and stand there, and that way we can get a...
Good to see you again. Yeah, welcome aboard. Thank you. Glad to have you. So I'm going to say, and then you repeat after me.
Okay.
So I, and your name,
I, James Eifert,
do solemnly swear that I will support,
that I will support,
protect, and defend the Constitution and government
the Constitution and government
of the United States
of the United States
and the state of Florida.
and the state of Florida.
That I am duly qualified
That I am duly qualified
to hold office under the Constitution
to hold office under the Constitution
of the state,
of the state,
and that I will well and faithfully
and that I will well and faithfully
perform the duties of the, I will say, Airport Board Authority,
of the Airport Board Authority,
on which I am about to enter.
which I'm about to enter.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Great.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Appreciate that.
Thank you so much.
All right. Greg, you can officially add General Eifert to our roll call and do the roll call.
Mr. Kirkland.
Present.
Mr. Pryor. Here. Mr. Daginaw.
Here.
Mr. Ludwig. Here. Ms. Hall.
Here.
General Eifert.
Here. All right. I'll let the record show that we do have a quorum tonight for our meeting. Moving on, do we have any public comment cards, Mr. Coon?
We did not.
All right. So the consent agenda you had received by email, the consent agenda, which consists of the August 2024 financials, as well as the September 10th, 2024 Keystone Heights Airport Authority Board meeting minutes. I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any question or discussion? All in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Mr. Prang.
Okay, good evening, members of the board. I'm here to present an item that is in your packet. It's approval of task order, we call them supplemental agreement number 28 to perform the airport master plan update, airport recycling plan, and Exhibit A property map services. The contract value for AECOM is $592,523. You'll recall from previous meetings that the project is funded 90% by an FAA grant and 10% by an FDOT grant. I wrote on the board last time, and I took a picture of that, so I have those grant dollar values. If anybody wants those, I can read them back to you. The total amount of funding for the project is $605,523. Doing this math in my head, the $13,000 difference between our contract and the total grant funding is a $3,000 allowance for the airport to be reimbursed because you had to hire a consultant to do an independent fee estimate. And then there's $10,000 that the FAA allows for, up to $10,000 of airport administrative expenses, running advertisements, making copies. If by some chance we had to rent a venue for one of the public meetings, you could get reimbursed for those types of costs out of the $10,000 in the federal grant. I'm open to questions in a minute, but let me just call your attention to a couple things that might be of interest. On page 2, you'll see there's some recitations of FAA advisory circulars. The two main FAA advisory circulars that we rely on are 150/5070-6B, that's titled Airport Master Plans. And then the Airport Design Advisory Circular is 5300-13B. The DOT also puts out a guidebook, FDOT guidebook for airport master planning. That follows Florida Administrative Code Chapter 14-60. So those are all three longstanding documents promulgated by the FDOT and the FAA. They are regularly updated, and they make cross-references to a number of other FAA requirements that the master plan must meet. You'll notice in the master plan scope, the narrative part is, we've broken the work out into 11 tasks. Nothing particularly magic about those 11 tasks, except they do mirror specific deliverable items that are required by the FAA and the FDOT. So, and again, it's just, when you're gonna choke down 2,800 man hours worth of work, you gotta start with a good work breakdown structure. So we follow this 11 task format on almost all master plans of this type. Our work includes a handful of sub-consultants that will support us. The biggest of those, dollar value wise, is Woolpert. Woolpert is a company that regularly provides aerial photogrammetry and approach obstruction analysis. So their contract value with us is $66,300. They'll be flying the entire airport area and the surrounds, and they will be looking at all 4 approaches. They use controlled photogrammetry, so they can use their computer equipment to look for trees, structures, buildings, towers, anything like that that would either be close to or already penetrating the Part 77 surface. And they provide a lot of information on, they will help us create drawings that go into the airport layout plan set. Approach plates is what we refer to them as, but it's a detailed approach analysis of each of the 4 runway ends. And I'm not aware of any approach obstructions you have now, but as has been recently evidenced by an obstruction submittal, a tower submittal for construction or raising of a nearby tower, it's always important to have a good handle on what's going on around you, because someone building a structure or a tower somewhere near the airport can affect your ability to publish approaches or lower circling minimums and things like that. So. And beyond that sentence, I'm going to get out of my sneakers on approaches because I'm not a real pilot. So we might actually have to ask a real pilot if you need help understanding that. Another one of the consultants is Airport, I know their acronym, Airport Zero Waste Consulting. I mentioned this at the last meeting. One of the FAA requirements is that you produce a recycling plan. And Airport Zero Waste Consulting is a specialty consultant that grew out of that federal requirement. So again, I don't think anything significant will come from that. Their cost is about $13,500, but they will look at your waste streams, and they work from a federal template document to advise you on ways that you can improve or change the way you handle waste and maximize recycling efforts if they're appropriate. Another sub-consultant is a survey company called EF Gaines. The survey work here is predominantly built around updating your Exhibit A property map. We did that 10, 12 years ago, when the master plan was done previously. A local firm did the field survey work and produced the Exhibit A property map. Since that time, the FAA has written a new standard operating procedure for the way an Exhibit A property map has to be formatted. It has a lot to do with line styles, font sizes and the way the information's organized on the drawing, but it also has to do with the way the parent and sub-parcels are documented. So the EF Gaines surveying will predominantly be doing a desktop effort. There's no field survey. You haven't bought or sold property. We're not aware of any property monuments that have been moved or destroyed that have to be reset. So Gaines will be conducting a desktop survey and reformatting the entire document into the new standard operating procedure format, $18,900. Another part of the survey requirement, it's a very small component. We do have to get a new ownership and encumbrance report. So we previously used a local law firm to produce the last one. And for $1,000, they're going to update that by just making sure there have been no new easements or other encumbrances placed upon airport properties. And if they are, they'll be logged and noted in the Exhibit A property map. Okay, I think that was the end of my canned information. And I think if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to either direct you to where it's addressed or try to answer it myself.
With respect to the firm,
Yes, sir.
so we had a survey done to determine some locations of that track in relation to our runway object-free area and taxiway object-free area.
Yes.
Will this survey firm incorporate that and tie or depict the firm's track onto the ALP? Will that be part of it?
Well, so yes, typically in a master plan, we don't dive deep into any single issues like that, a lease boundary dispute, but it is required that we accurately depict all leases and describe them. So we will do that. I think what you're probably referring to is we'll have new aerial photogrammetry, so we'll be able to depict the new RPZ position, the runway obstacle-free, taxiway obstacle-free, and the safety areas with an updated aerial background. So I think you will be, the survey you had done was a special purpose survey. It was to a much higher level of detail. It was a low level flight, just a couple hundred feet flight,
Right.
so it's a lot more higher accuracy, but yes, we will be able to depict that. And although we don't, I know you're engaged with the FAA to just discuss, how to improve what exists there. We can certainly advise you. We don't have a specific task. A master plan's not meant to help support you with any specific tasks.
Right.
But as has been the case before, to the extent that we can help you understand and understand what the FAA is asking for and help you produce those documents, we're getting into a $500,000 contract. We're not going to leave you hanging on a small issue. We'll help you.
So I think from what I'm hearing you say, what will be done this time around will be done with a lot of accuracy, because we did have a question from the original master plan that we've been working off of when we drilled down to that area, around the racetrack and the firm. And although once we checked it, what was there came out really close.
Yes.
And so I think that's good information that we'll need and use.
So there's always a little bit of, I'll just call it error. There is some error in aerial photogrammetry. That has a lot to do with the flight at which it's flown and what the purpose of it is. And again, the better instrumentation you use, the tighter the accuracy. So I think on the old aerial photogrammetry, we thought it was 10 to 15 feet of encroachment. I think it turned out to be 18 or 15.8. I forget the number,
Right.
but I think 3 to 5 foot accuracy is probably still what you'll get from the controlled photogrammetry.
Okay.
And for the record, if anybody's into flying photogrammetry, we've already engaged. We're hoping to get a signed contract tonight, but we've already engaged that sub about 3 weeks ago to try to get it plotted into their schedule so we can fly this season. Typically, the winter is the best time to fly, less cloud cover, better image quality. So haven't heard back from them yet, but unfortunately, it does happen sometimes where depending on their workload, they say, yeah, we could fly that in June. And then we usually say, nah,
Yeah.
but we want to be in the next November, put us on the list early. It's a 2-year process, so it's not the end of the road, but we have to stage a lot of activities and then come back and finish them later if we don't get the aerial photography in the first possible weather cycle. I shouldn't be talking about weather cycles. The first opportunity for me, that's what I want to say.
All right, any other questions for Bill?
I have a quick question. As far as the original, airport master plan, which firm, who did that one that time? Who was basically produced that document?
Which consultant?
for you? Yes.
It was us. Our name was URS Corporation at the time, but it's the same core. I was the project manager then. We have a different lead planner now. The planner that was here during that time period just left and went to another company. So, but it's the same core, the same CAD technician who'll be working on this. And we got bought by AECom in the meantime.
Okay.
So that's the reason for the name change.
Okay. Yeah, just don't know that I was ever aware of who it was. So I know we talk about that one a lot, but I don't know that I've seen all of the information there. But this is a minor detail and probably nothing big, but I just noticed as looking through the current one that we're discussing now, and I believe it was in the back portion of it, and I apologize, I don't have it in front of me, but where there were the images of Wolpert's, I guess their description of what they are going to be performing, yes, or their scope. They had runway 23 listed as runway 24, and I don't know if that, it's just, not that it's a major thing, but just for clarification purposes and all, that somebody be able to
Yes.
let them know.
I'm sure
just
that's
so
a
it doesn't.
typo, but we'll get that fixed before we sign a contract with them. And
It's just one of those things, like they say, a blind hog finds an acorn every once in a while. It wasn't because I was like able to I found, it was just, I came across that, and when I originally first saw that, I thought, oh, they're going to change the numbers, because I've seen that take place in my previous, where I work, in at least one of the airports.
So I was gonna
I flagged.
speak of that, it might have been a Freudian slip. About every 10 years, the magnetic fields of the earth change. So that will become 2-4, and that may be when they're gonna be done with this.
That's right.
All right, Scott's taking shots on the schedule.
I already know it'll be 2-4 by then.
It was 422, and I don't know how many years ago it changed to 523.
Yeah,
So it very well could change.
International.
Yeah.
Correct.
right.
Yeah.
Thanks for catching that, Bobby. I'll make sure that's corrected.
All right, any other questions?
I have a question, I'm obviously very ignorant and trying to understand this, but I've been through this process before. The kids at the International Airport, where with the fighter wing, we went through a master plan update similar to this. A big part that informed the master plan update was our strategic plan as an organization. Wondering, do we have one of those that is informing the master plan in terms of, what is our, do we have, I'm totally ignorant, just asking, but it would seem to me that the strategic plan for the airport would help to inform the master plan update so that we're having them look at the things that we think are important for the future of the facilities, the runways, the environment, and that kind of thing. Is that something that we have at this point?
We don't have it at this point. The only thing that we've done is Craig and I met with Bill and their planner and brought to their attention some things outside of what the old master plan had as far as future development for some of the properties now that we have the new access road, for example, and then that area that's up for development. So he's taken all that into account and will include that in the master plan update.
So that's, what are all those things that are gonna be part of that? Is it like, new facilities, new, leases, new, I'm just trying to.
So, and Bill can chime in here, but the master plan consists of what we have currently, so it depicts everything that's here, but then it also looks at future development. So there are areas depicted, I think Bill's probably gonna grab it and show, there are areas that are already depicted and defined for future development, whether it's aeronautical and then the non-aeronautical portions of our airport. So that's included within the master plan update.
Okay.
If I could go back to the beginning and take a different, like a side road to David's answer, a no and yes. I don't think the airport has a standalone document called a strategic plan or a business plan, might be another name for something like that. Certainly could be something you develop yourselves over the next several months. However, some of that through the stakeholder involvement, through us coming here and workshopping with the board members and staff, that's your opportunity to say, I think this is something we should look at that's really important for the future.
Exactly.
You're also counting on us as professional aviation consultants to guide you through the work we're doing with other airports where we can say, hey, you know, airports used to build shade hangars, and like nobody wants a shade hanger anymore, so we're not gonna plan for shade hangers. The more common thing is this or that type of hanger. So you are counting on us to help bring some of that thinking to the workshop environment.
Right.
But again, you don't have, and I don't know that many airports your size do have. You could certainly have a strategic plan. It might be no more than a couple of pages, some bullet lists, but if you want to develop that, we'd be happy to engage in that through the stakeholder process. But one of the things that David and Craig did talk about was trying to make use of the lands you have that borders the lake areas, trying to make use of this area maybe for some recreational or other non-aviation lease opportunities, revenue generating things. I think we're probably going to take a closer look at the other side of runway 1129. Right now, this is just shown as a big block that says future aviation development. So it's properly designated and preserved on your master plan for aviation use. Same thing with the infield. Last time, it's not shown here, but we did a pretty detailed layout of an infield aviation development use concept. So that was an area that got attention last time. There's been one little piece of movement towards that, which was this, that was done for a specific tenant possibility. This right here is at the end of runway 5.
Okay.
So this was drawn from the beginning of what is a full concept build out in the midfield area. In 10 years, there hasn't really been any other interest except that in the midfield area. And I think the main reason they were interested here was not because it was near the midfield, because it was in Bradford County. So, you know, sometimes things you thought were important 10 years ago turn out to be, that really didn't get legs. Sure. There was no traction under that. So, but yeah, the recreational use here is one thing. Hangar development will certainly be another thing. Hangar space represents more based aircraft, more opportunities to sell fuel, more opportunities to entice another or more robust aircraft maintenance operators.
As well as potential military use.
Yeah, we're aware, this area, again, this is not the best exhibit, but this area was always shown for military or quasi-military development. We know a little bit more about a plan there, so we can refine that concept even further with what's now being conceived. Something else I probably should say, just in case everybody doesn't know, the FAA wants us to look at 3 time horizons: short term, 0 to 5 years, intermediate, 6 to 10, and then long term. Some of the things that go in long term are wish list items that may never happen, but if they're not on your master plan and on your airport layout plan, they're guaranteed not to happen. So you'll see a runway extension at both ends. Will that ever happen? A lot of things have to fall into place before you could justify the several $1 million it takes to extend a runway. The FAA's posture is currently, this is not a written posture. I could just tell you in the last 10 years, I'm doing this at 8 or 10 airports. The FAA doesn't want to fund a runway extension anywhere, especially at a GA airport. The bar is high to justify a project like that.
Does the update include anything concerning nav aids?
Yeah, we'll look at all your existing nav aids.
Okay.
I don't think that this is gonna become a topic of need or want, and who's gonna fund it again. We show in here, I think, if it's not on, it might be just on the ultimate, it wasn't listed as a project, but an ILS, an instrument approach on the 5N. Will that ever become a reality? I'm not sure. Again, that's a project that's hard to fund unless you're gonna self-fund it, and I've seen the numbers, you're not gonna self-fund it. So I don't think it's not a realistic financial plan to think you could self-fund a project like that.
I think ILSs around the country too, or a lot of airports are not running them currently, you know, they're shutting down the equipment and doing RNAVs, so.
Yep.
Something you could ask for now, in the future may not be viable. And when you're talking about JIA, they've got a much more complicated business model. You've got an airline terminal there. You've got 1 million people living there. You've got businesses that can crunch a lot of numbers and look at expansions of airline terminals. And we're just trying to figure out if we'll ever have an airline terminal.
Sure.
You know, we don't know what the future holds.
Sure.
Okay, just to be clear, you will not have an airline. It wasn't even a dream project.
Put it on the 70 to 80 year lookout.
Yeah.
So,
That would be in the
Now,
purple.
I gotta be honest with you, Scott, you'll mention that, like, but the providing a plan that's flexible and incorporates future expansion of your airport business footprint, charter ops might be a possibility. So would we want to look at some areas? What could we do to be ready if a charter operator came and said, hey, I want to start running a charter operation out of here. Where could I put my facility? What do you have available? What type of infrastructure you have? Another thing the master plan is going to point to that's not a new problem here, we're aware of it, but the master plan is probably going to say you have some fixed limitations with your infrastructure, water, sewer. You don't really have electricity, and communications is not a limitation here, but water and sewer is lack of municipal water and sewer on the airport could be a hindrance to some operators that want to be here.
Would you make some comment about the feasibility study and the fact that we're looking at that?
So the utility feasibility study that was done would probably be incorporated either by reference or as an appendix.
Okay.
Because it's a relatively recent document. We
Right.
typically wouldn't reference a study from 8 or 10 years ago, but something that's more recently completed in this year would probably be just incorporated, discussed, and incorporated as part of the plan and attached as an appendix.
So, General, one of the other areas that we spoke with Bill and AECOM's planner about was down Governor's Road over to Blanding. We were looking at, obviously beyond the RPZs for both of the runways there, but on both sides of that road, looking at that to where that could be either for military, because being close to wanting to get into Blanding. So that's going to be incorporated this time with this update that we didn't have before. So that's just in addition to that west side development, and as Bill mentioned about something around the lake, some sort of conservation, eco-friendly type tourism type thing. Those will be all new to this master plan that we didn't have previously.
And at the risk of boring you, the bulk, like I'm not sure I can put a number on this, but the bulk of what we're doing here is making sure what you have and what you will have in the future meets FAA safety and design standards.
Sure.
So that's, and a lot of that is not fancy at all. I'll give you one example. The FAA typically does not like when runway ends touch, when the physical pavement of two runway ends touch. You have that. 2.3 and 2.9 are physically connected with pavement. Just finishing a project at a nearby airport where the FAA said you got to get rid of that. Runway 7 and 11 can't touch. So we demolished. Well, so it has to do, look up.
Louisville.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it has to do with pilot confusion and wrong surface departures. And it doesn't matter so much at a place like this because both your runways are nearly equidistant. But at a place that has 8,000 and 4,000, if the pilot gets confused because he taxis here and he doesn't know whether to go here or go there, if he takes off on the short one, he might crash. And it did happen, and I think it was Lexington, when that happened.
that's right,
it just
that's
came
right.
to me as I was saying it. That happened, the FAA stood up a big study and said any place where an airport has more than one runway, if two runways touch or cross, you gotta mitigate. And one of the mitigations is separate them. So we spent a lot of time in the previous master plan showing a length here to be compensated on the 11 end because we were gonna shorten 2.9 to here, and this would all become turf grass. You couldn't physically taxi from taxiway alpha to 2.9. Hence, that's why we had to show this full length inter-taxi lane so that you could cross and get to 2.9 that way. That's what the big end around is. So we spend a lot of time satisfying the FAA that if they have requirements, safety requirements, we have a plan to show if and when it got funded, we could accommodate. And I say the bulk of the time because when the FAA looks at this, the FAA is not gonna say, well, let me see what you're planning to do with ecotourism. We're gonna have to convince them that that's important. They're gonna say, let me see your runway safety areas, let me see your taxiway safety areas, let me see your approaches. Like they're all down hard on the safety and the compliance issues. But so the opportunity then to get all these other things evaluated is, we've got to be compelling and we've got to show that we have a stakeholder group that thinks there's value in the projects we're pushing forward. And there is a little bit of, I'll just call it salesmanship. There's a little bit of us getting with the FAA and the FDOT and saying, hey, this is important to us. We think this is, the FAA wants airports like this to be self-sustaining financially. So you've got to give us opportunities to develop revenue potential. And, the FAA is certainly not shy about saying no, but they also do say, yes, that sounds fine. That meets all of our criteria. That can be in your plan. So the DOT is much more relaxed in their approach. Typically once we've met all the FAA requirements, the DOT is also in favor of whatever your plan is. They want your plan to be your plan, and then they want to help you be successful. That's kind of the FDOT's mentality. I could talk for hours.
Well, it's a shame that every pilot just doesn't look at the number that's painted on the runway. He returns onto it,
Or the sign.
Or the sign that's at the, next to the runway, that's
We
right.
could paint them bigger and make them a prominent color.
But Scott mentioned a minute ago, we have an RNAV approach, an instrument approach to runway 5 currently. Do you have any idea what it takes to convince the FAA to establish an RNAV approach to another runway?
So, yes, I don't know the specifics because I'm not an approach planner. Couple things are going to be hurdles here. First of all, your last obstruction survey is very old. So the new obstruction survey that comes out of this task will be a big start to be able to go to that approach planning group and say, hey, we have brand new data. We think you can improve our approach or give us write a new approach. So it takes good quality data. It takes, I'm going to call it a lobbying effort, that you have to be able to do your own evaluation to say, yes, we think this could be improved, and you've got to get that in front of them. You're down the list on importance of places that need approaches published. So you have to lobby, and I've already talked this week with the tower thing that's being discussed. I've already talked to Craig about, hey, we need to be talking to the ADO personnel in Orlando and get them involved so that, if this tower is of no consequence, let them build it. But if it's gonna, all of a sudden your minimums are gonna raise 100 feet, then the tower should probably be protested or denied.
Right.
Because it's gonna create a hazard to aviation, or it's gonna diminish your ability to publish a better approach. So it's good data, which you'll have in a year's time, and lobbying for what you think would be important. And I would say don't just lobby for new approaches. You probably need to lobby for the 2 that would be the best utility for the pilots here, based on both wind direction usage and limited restrictions to the east. Kind of go with a specific request and see if you can't work through your ADO Orlando staff to push it up to the, I think that's all done under air traffic
Yeah, yeah.
organization, so, but, you know, you don't have a direct interface with the air traffic organization. You have to work that through your Orlando
For the ADO.
district office rep.
All right, any other questions?
Okay, I'll make a motion that we accept supplemental agreement number 28 with AECom in the amount of $592,523.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Last chance for any discussion or any more questions. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Frank.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. We'll move down to the items I have. Last meeting, Mr. Fryer asked about funds and investments, and since that meeting, Craig and I have met with representatives from Ameris Bank with respect to our accounts, and then one of their representatives was a specialist that deals with government-type investing and commercial investing. So what they have asked us to do is they are going to do a cash flow analysis and do some evaluation of what we are presently doing. And then from that, they'll come back to us with a recommendation as to what we should be investing based on when we have projects and we need to have a large amount of money in our accounts to cover invoices that come in from those projects. So Craig is getting with Mary, and they're working to get that out of QuickBooks, and we'll get that to Ameris to have them look at that. We also met with another gentleman with Florida Safe, FL Safe, and they basically, it's a local government investment type pool. They provide various types of investments as well. Same deal there. They offered to do the analytics for us on our finances and then come back with a recommendation of what they could offer us. So that's where we are with that. So we've got some information to get to those two entities and then get their feedback, and then we'll bring that to the board.
Did they have an approximate time window when they could do that? Because the rates are already dropping.
Yeah.
We went from 5.1, now it's down to 4.6. We're losing money every day.
Yeah.
But they didn't give you any kind of time frame or?
No, not on how quickly they would turn that around.
Okay.
I mean, they didn't give us anything definite. They said they could, get back to us pretty quick. But
Okay.
again, no exact time frame. So we'll be bringing that back to you as soon as we get that information from them. Hangar payoff, one of the other things that you approved last month was to pay off the hangar that Mike Potapow is in. It's a bulk hangar. So got with the bank, Craig got with them, got the final payoff number, stroked them a check. So that is paid off. Saved a lot of money in interest by doing that. And so that's been done. And then the bylaws revision, you had received a copy of what I had submitted to Craig. And the revisions that I've noted there are to update what the city council has done with respect to the charter. They had put a referendum before the voters, if you recall, to change the charter that would eliminate the Florida National Guard representative position. So by doing that, we went from 4 seats, which were city seats, and we had a Bradford County seat, a Clay County seat, and the Florida National Guard. So with that referendum approval, then come January 1, 2025, is when that takes effect, then there will be 5 city seats, and then the Clay County and the Bradford County representatives. So our bylaws showed 4, and it also showed 1 member from the Florida National Guard. So I deleted that I changed it from 4 to 5. That's in section 3A and D. And then on the next page, there was a correction that needed to be made. There were some numbers that were referenced to other sections that were incorrect. And this actually got brought to our attention by our attorney, Jim Taylor, when we were discussing about chair and vice chair and voting. So I made those corrections as well. The other page that you have is the table of revisions, and that also reflects the changes that I just went over with you. So what we need is a motion to approve the amendments that are listed to our bylaws.
I'll make a motion to approve the bylaw amendments as presented.
All right, do I hear a second?
Second.
All right, and any questions? Any discussion? All right, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, motion carries. All right, moving on. Mr. Fryer.
So under the special event policy, we've had some discussion with the Light Fest and the fact that they just kind of came in rogue and everything. But then it brought up I think we moved into the Crawling for the Fallen. So Craig was questioning Christine, is that her name? The lady that runs Crawling for the Fallen?
Sounds close, yeah.
I think it's Christine or something like that. And he just told me in passing, he says, he had asked her, to fill this out. And she says, well, why do I need to fill this out? I've never done it before. And so he asked me about it, and I said, well, certainly they've done it before. They've been here for years. I think this is their 8th year or something like that. So I called Maria, our previous airport manager, and she explained to me that, no, we did not do an event policy because when the firm leases that land over there, it becomes as if it's their property legally, and that it is their responsibility to make sure they've got the liability insurance and all those things covered. Now, she said that we did not do the event policy with this caveat, that she always attended the meeting to make sure that they were following our plans as far as having law enforcement, any EMS services, that they did have a policy. And the only time I think where I guess I got confused is when we had the Nitro Circus here. I remember specifically they filled one out, and she says, well, they did, and she said, if you recall, we did a lease, a temporary lease of land for parking. I think I went over there and mowed 16 acres for the Clay County Sheriff's Office. And she said, that's why we had to do that. That was outside of the boundaries of their property and their liability. So that's the only reason that occurred. So this brings up another question. We've got one of our tenants that wants to have a retirement party at his hangar. Now, Craig and I have discussed it a little bit. I'm of the opinion that that is a non-event with respect. There's not going to be people paying to attend it. There won't be strangers coming from the public. There won't be traffic. We're talking about 40 people. But Craig brought up a good point, and like I say, we've discussed this pretty well, but we wanted to bring it to the board. The liability, if somebody falls back there, if they trip and twist their ankle. But we've had memorial services for 2 pilots that I know of that died. We have had tenant gatherings out there, for either tenant meetings and get-togethers for cookouts. I'm just of the opinion if it's something that either one of our tenants, I think the tenant should make the airport manager aware of it. But I think because it's not truly an event where there's revenue paying or a revenue stream being involved, I just don't think it should have the event form done. That's my thought. It did bring to mind when the Friends of Keystone were going to do the party out here for the centennial. I said, well, should they fill one out? course, they're not gonna have it here now, right?
No, they're still gonna have the 12 to 3
Okay,
family event.
okay, so they'll fill one out, but that's the general public coming, you don't know who's coming in. Will they have their own insurance, or are they
Yes.
covered under ours? So,
They'll have an event policy.
so we just wanted to bring it to the board for discussion. I don't know how people feel about it, but if we start doing it for the tenants, then we have the powered paragliders. They like to come and camp out at Wayne's Retreat. Are they gonna have to do it? In other words, we're gonna make this thing so rigid that every function we have, somebody's gotta fill out paperwork, purchase insurance. Where do we draw the line? And I think Craig's got a good point. It's something we need to look at.
So I mentioned to Craig as well, because he shared it with me. My first thought was, all right, let's get Jim Taylor, let's get the legal side. Really, where are we with something like that? Even though it's a non-aeronautical tenant, or if it's a T hangar or a corporate hangar tenant.
Right.
My only concern, I guess, is liability. That's so prevalent today in just everything. I agree, it gets cumbersome sometime. And then you gotta draw a line somewhere. Okay, is it 10 people? Is it 40 people? Is it 100 people? Consistency is always best, because we set a precedent one way, it's
Come
there.
back and bite us or whatever.
Exactly. We've not heard back from Jim.
I talked to him on the phone today. He didn't realize that I was looking for a certain time frame, and I might not have expressed that to him, but I told him we'd give him some time to review and respond, but I can tell you his general thoughts are he's concerned with liability, as he probably should be. That's his job. He said, it's my job to find the worst possible case scenario. And so, and I talked with our FMIT representative, and he seems to be more level-headed in terms of real-world operations. But he said he's seen circumstances where municipalities just quit having events. There are none, because they didn't want to accept any liability. So is that what we're gonna say, or can we not have fly-ins now, where you have people come in and hot dog Thursdays, is that a special event policy now? Where's the line drawn? I don't know. That's not my job, I guess, that's just,
So for the city,
So, the key words to me are consistency, number one. You don't do it for some and not for the other.
right.
And number two is big time liability. So we have events all the time at the pavilion, as you well know. Now, one of the things we instituted recently, which this was Dan's idea, which I thought was awesome, if they are a local resident, we did reduce fees, like if they wanted to rent it, so they had a shorter fee to rent the facility. Anyone else pays the regular fees. We have a 2-page document that they complete, which I'll be more than happy to forward to y'all to look at. And it's really a pretty simple form. And they have to do it like probably about 2 months ahead of time, because everything takes a while by the time it comes in front of us. And we review it prior to a meeting and approve it. We approved 3 just last night. So it is important, because it lets you know kind of exactly what's going to be there and how many people it's going to be. Many of these folks do get their own insurance, and that includes people who host weddings there, wedding receptions. And it's just a real basic policy that's not terribly expensive.
Ma'am, is that for if they're renting the interior building or
Yeah,
even
the
using the
interior building.
outside properties?
The interior building.
What about the outside?
So the outside is still open to the public. You can still use it for your guests, but that's never shut down. So the public can still be there while you're having an event. So, but on the inside, if they rent the building, it's a private event and nobody can go in there while they're there. But it is a really simple process, and, the whole thing with, if it's, even with the city, we have to make sure we have, if we know so many people are gonna be on board, like we pay for law enforcement for the things like parades and whatnot. So Kiwanis, for example, sponsoring the Christmas parade. They are responsible for covering the cost of the mayor's office president. And they look at how many people, and then they identify how many officers have to be on board. So there's a variety of things, but the liability is the bigger piece, because it's on your city property, it's on your property. And you hope that nothing terrible's gonna happen, but it's always that one case.
Yep.
Well, the fact that some people have leases on their hangar,
They're
right?
leasing from you all, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So
They don't own the
would not in that lease agreement, there be some type of indemnity kind of clauses that would cover someone getting hurt? Someone cut their finger off, working on their airplane in the hangar, the airport's not liable for that, right?
Correct.
Right.
Each tenant has to have insurance on their airplane and then
Right.
an amount for liability in the event the airplane catches on fire.
So
And
if it's a tenant hosting an event, would they not still have that liability?
No, it's more towards the aircraft or the damage caused by the aircraft.
yeah, it's more
I
aircraft.
tend to agree that what we're talking about is if a tenant is hosting some kind of event which is outside of normal operations. Well, what are normal operations?
Retirement, like you're saying.
Normal operations, we store airplanes, we have airplanes, we go out, we fly our airplanes, bring it back, close the door. That's normal operations. Well, if somebody wants to do something that's outside of normal operations, I just think it'd be appropriate to have the airport informed about whatever it is, whatever somebody wants to do that's outside of those normal operations.
Well, here's another factor in that. They're going to be behind the security fence too.
Yeah.
True,
So they're inside a secured area,
right.
and
That's also my concern. Not that I'm trying to pick on the firm, but they are inside the fence. If they were outside the fence, I might care a lot less as to what they're doing on their.
Right.
right.
Because you're exactly right. They're inside the property around all your other tenants' things, even though it's a shut down building. You don't know what people are gonna do. You can't control that. You just have to protect yourselves. And really, the person doing it should feel no worry about doing that because it protects them as well.
Oh, yeah.
Can I ask you real quick? You said that these people sometimes buy their own policies. You don't require them, but they do it as an additional layer of protection.
I think it's required.
I think it's required.
It's part of their act.
Does the city tell them who to go to? I wouldn't even know where to go get that kind of insurance.
Any broker can do one-day
Yeah,
event.
they can do.
And you can walk into Allstate and do that? or-
Yeah,
Okay,
they have them.
When you
okay,
do air travel, like I went to Europe and I got certain insurance for being over.
okay.
Any trip I make, I tend to buy the insurance, just like a place on the state of VRBO. It might be $75 or something, but it covers me in the event that something happens.
Okay.
So just like you said, they have these one-time things, and I think that's how people do it. They find out who they can use. And there are probably people locally that offer
Okay.
them.
Bill, do you have experience with this at all at other places? No?
Most other small airports have a casual policy.
So our event application had a $25 fee with it. That, a little history on that was basically to cover the manager's time just of going through the document, making sure the insurance is provided, making sure law enforcement, whatever, both counties or one county. So in a situation like that, we could say, well, for a tenant, we waive the $25 fee.
Exactly.
But it's just my opinion, and I think Craig is the FMIT guy. He's our insurance, that's our insurance company. Even with the event for the city, his comment was, for an event, you need to have, whoever's having the event, have that limited one-day policy. And have the airport as listed, as insured.
Insured, yeah.
Right.
Okay, now I'm gonna throw a wrench in your gears.
Why?
Precisely because of you.
Okay.
Field trips. We've done 2 of them just in the latter part of this year, since the summer, or 3.
We have.
What do we do about field trips? The schools can barely, the kids got to pay for their buses now. The county won't even pay for their transportation. Could we have an exemption for them? I mean, because they're being chaperoned or escorted?
I would think,
That's an airport activity, though, not a tenant activity.
Okay, well, I'm just asking the question because I don't know where this is.
That's an airport activity.
So you're covered by your airport insurance.
Okay,
When kids come out.
And that's how it works for us too.
okay,
We bring the 4th grade class in to the city hall and then at the beach and do that field trip with them. where they learn about civic government and stuff.
Right.
And so our insurance as a organization was.
Will cover that sort of activity.
If the school transports them, that's their insurance.
Right.
That's
right.
their bus or whatever covers that cost or whatever it might be. Our
Right.
kids happen to walk, but. you know,
Well, I just was concerned, I wouldn't
No,
want
that's
the
a valid
schools to have to
question.
buy a policy.
That's a good question.
So it's just where do we draw the line? So,
Yeah, I think it's every situation's pretty different. And even an outside tenant, where they want to come here, fly in and do an event, that's a whole different situation as well.
Yeah.
So I will tell y'all, and I can send it to you just so you don't have to figure it out. Our agenda last night, it's always a copy of everything. I can forward that to y'all, and we have 3 people who applied, or 4 maybe, I don't know, whatever.
yeah,
Yeah, and you can see where they filled out the form, and then the insurance and all that of all 3 examples.
okay,
And I think one is a pop-up event, and others a festival at a church, and the other, I think, is a wedding. And they want to get alcohol, so they have to have special permission to get that inside the pavilion. But at least you can see 3 good examples. So I'll pull that out of the documents, so you don't have to filter through it, and send it for y'all to take a look at.
One of the other things I'm interested in too, Mayor, is the limits on the insurance. What are those amounts that y'all specify?
I don't know that for sure. I'd have to probably look at one of them in detail and see what it says.
Yeah. Maybe the application has that on there. Obviously, it's got to tell them what they have to have for coverage.
Correct.
So I'd be curious, I think we have a number in ours. I'd have to pull the document to look at it. So that's another good thing we need to.
Because I had a copy of their insurance document with the application.
Correct.
okay, so we're waiting on Mr. Taylor, and we're
And yeah,
pretty much of the consensus that
Yeah.
that the city want, well, I mean, I know you're speaking as one, but the city would generally like us to have this. Now, with that said, this one tenant has got his retirement party planned, I think, for November 7th.
From now, actually.
Yeah, so outside of the board, is it sufficient if Craig is able to get this individual's application? I know under normal circumstances, the board will want to probably take a look at each one. But given that this is such short notice, is it possible for the airport manager to approve this if this individual is to get sufficient insurance? I think he's talking about having 40 people is what he told me.
Something like that.
I don't have a problem with the airport manager looking at all of them. I don't know why
Right.
they have to come to us.
I agree.
anyway.
Okay.
If they're checking all the boxes, providing all the insurance,
approve it.
providing FDLE, providing
Okay.
porta potties, I mean, whatever the event may require, that's what we pay him to do personally.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's,
Well, they review theirs.
Yeah, I
The
would-
city reviews theirs, so that's why I wondered, so,
Mine Charlie doing all of ours.
yeah,
For some reason, the way the charter is written, it has to come to us for a vote.
okay. Okay,
But that's something y'all can decide on.
And if the airport manager's doing that, I think it's our job as a board is to at least make sure that we all agree that the consistency, that it stays, that we're not all over the place depending on, and it's not to try to hurt anybody or to make things difficult or no fun here, but it's just, again, for consistency and liability, it just makes everything clear cut and it's simple. It's simple for him to make that decision or for us, if it does come to us, to make that decision to keep us all in the clear. You know, and again, I'll bring this part up, and I have something I want to add to this later, but going back to the gate situation, like y'all were mentioning, you know, talking about being into the secure area. That's something that we run into, you know, no matter how many people if we're gonna have, you know, a large number of people going in and out of that gate, where that gate, you know, and anybody, you know, that has experience with those gates there, and you can wear those gates out doing that, you know, or is it just that we're giving the codes out to everybody? And again, that runs into another problem, which I'll discuss.
Well, it's up to the tenant
no, we open the gate.
sponsoring all those
We open
guests.
it, but
And we
does
make
it-
sure somebody in that party, this is what we've done in the past, and I'm just telling you. We've had a graduation party out here. I think we've had 2 weddings. We've had these memorial services. Generally, yeah, you'd smoke that gate. So we open it up at that given time and we make sure somebody is near that gate watching. And almost like a sponsor. Somebody has to,
Yeah.
there's a sponsor. And in several of the cases, it's been me. Other cases, I think it was Maria, whoever. But no, we wouldn't do that, and we wouldn't be giving out, we don't give out that PIN number to the individuals, period.
right.
Yeah, absolutely not, but that's a good point, but we don't do that.
And I think we all know Craig keeps us informed. He'll email us, and I think he could do that with any event policy he gets. hey, just for information, here's an application that came in, and they meet all the
Date and time,
criteria, they
yeah.
provide all the insurance, just heads up and that he's approved it.
Okay.
Or maybe disapproved. I mean,
I don't necessarily want to see us not do anything ever. I don't think that's beneficial to the airport.
So let's talk about one thing. I know in our
But
policy.
we should be aware of what's going on.
That I 100% agree with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In our application, I think it says 90 days
Yeah.
prior to the event.
Yeah.
Again, maybe we can look at what the city puts in theirs. 90 days is pretty far out.
60 should be sufficient.
So that's another thing let's look at as we go through this as well.
Yeah, because I mean, it just depends, like you said, on the approval. I mean, for us, it's all a matter of like, if they send it in, say, today, we're not gonna meet again until, I think, third week of November at this point.
Right.
Because of some changes. And then we're not having a meeting in December. So if they're wanting to have something in January, you know what I mean? So it's a timing thing.
Right.
And I think you just give yourself a buffer, at least 30 days buffer on top of some other time. Just to, you know, to be sure that there's enough time to get it processed. If there's any issues that come up.
Right.
I think one of the other things too, that it will enable our airport manager by having at least a 30-day notice, he needs to look at our calendar. What's happening here on the airport? Is there something happening on the airport that, maybe we don't want to have? Exactly. So I think getting back to where we started, I think we've got to have an event application for every event, whether it's a tenant or whether it's an outside party wanting to come in, just so we know what's going on.
Sounds fair to me.
I
Is
mean,
that something we need to
literally had
vote
a
on or
Discussion last night. So Dan wants to do this Christmas Fest thing.
Right,
Which I
right.
think is great. Y'all heard him talking about it. But we also have the parade going on, which is sponsored by Kiwanis, and they're doing like an afterglow party in the pavilion afterwards. They already months ahead reserved this. And Dan wanted to have his part of it during the same time, which includes food vendors. Well, the afterglow party is also going to provide food. So in honor of those other people that asked for reservations early, we have to respect that. And so that's why we dialed back on Dan and said, you can't have it while they're having theirs, because it'll dilute their effort and what they're trying to do. So, you know, he wasn't crazy about that, but that's what's fair, even though he's a council member, you know?
Right.
So we finally decided, okay, it's not gonna go into even the time of the parade, it's gonna be cut off at 4, I think, from 11 to.
That's what they said last night, yeah, 4.
Right, so, but he wanted it to go through the whole evening. And we just said that it wasn't fair to those other people, based on what they were.
Hope you're undercutting them.
And maybe we could look at something different next year, but for this year, that's what we're gonna go with,
Right.
so. But you're right, you have to be sure what else, the other things going on around, so there's no conflict really of interest.
Okay.
All right, so we need a motion to take some action on this as to what we're going to do. And then between Craig and the mayor, then they can look at the applications, make some revisions, send that out to all of us, and then we'll have everything in place.
Think of how to word this. So I'll make a motion that any events that occur on airport, well, inside airport-controlled property, excluding the firm, would that be the only one?
No, including the firm.
No, they got to be included.
They gotta be
Gonna make them fill out
every
one
tenant,
event on theirs?
Yep,
any event outside of normal operations.
that's the
Okay,
best way to put it.
make the motion then, and I'll second it. See there? You and your field trippers.
But that's an airport-sponsored event. Okay, let's see here. I'll make a motion that any event on airport property that is outside of normal operations
Shall be required.
coordinator, planner must submit
Event application.
an event, special event application prior to.
And should we include purchase insurance?
That will be part of the application requirement.
Okay,
Yes.
okay, I'll second his motion.
All right.
Very good.
And the time frame as far as when the application has to be in prior to the event,
60 days.
30 days or 60 days, that will be part of that document as well.
Okay. So we got a motion and a second.
Any other discussion?
Now, yes, one question. Does the application currently say 90 days?
I think it does.
I think it does too.
Do we want to amend that to say 60 days?
Yeah, whatever you guys want to do, or
As a-
saying that I would just make it the change as a part of
Yeah.
my collaboration with the mayor.
This, so between what the mayor's going to provide, Craig, then we'll revise our document as needed, so that we have consistency there.
Including
That'd be
insurance
fine.
amounts and all that.
Yep, the insurance amounts.
Yeah.
So, all right,
Okay, so our motion's good then.
all right, all in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Aye, opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Tree clearing?
Okay, so we heard Mr. Prang talking about approaches and all that. We hear the terms RNAV, ILS. You know what that is? Surely you know what that is, right? So ILS is
About
instrument.
trees.
Well, that's, so the ILS is an instrument landing system, and that's where radio waves are beamed up. And RNAV's a little bit different. It's through the use of GPS and maybe radar guidance from air traffic control. So
An ILS approach has got a transmitter positioned near the runway, provides a beam, and it provides a guidance to the pilot for a precision approach to within 100 feet off the runway. Okay, now the RNAV approaches that Scott's referring to from GPS, it guides the pilot in a little bit higher than that, 200 feet off the ground. But those are electronic guidance to the runway when visibility is less than 3 miles.
you're coming through the clouds.
Or the ceiling
see
is
the
kinda
ground,
low.
It guides you back to Mother Earth, so to speak. So with that said, and I know we were waiting on Mr. Prang to get our fence up here.
And they're always
All the other things
a
we're waiting on.
3-degree approach to the runway,
Right.
the end of the runway.
Is that what we're waiting on before we start clearing those trees up there by 100? Do we want to wait until we have the inset gate? And I'm not looking at you, because here's what I don't want to get forgotten. The approach to runway 5, it's kind of a multi-terrace thing in my opinion. Every time we have this, every year the DOT comes and inspects this glide slope, and it's usually a 3.5 degree, like Dave says, to a 3-degree glide slope for safety. And anything that gets in the path of that aircraft or near a certain threshold is going to be an obstruction for obvious reasons. So on our airport master plan, Bill kindly pointed out that even though we've got the nice orange Crayola color, we'll never get that extension, but this tree area here on the end is what I talked about before. I'd like to have clear cut back further into this RPZ so that we don't have to keep being pointed out, okay, this one's going to be next, this one's 2 years from now. Plus, Mr. Kuhn is talking about, so without getting real complicated, everything on aircraft travel is based on mean sea level. That's the only way you can play the same game at altitude. So right now our RNAV is what, 600 feet? Which means when you come out of the clouds, we're at 196 feet, so let's just say 200 feet. And 600 feet is mean sea level. That means there's 400 between the ground and the airplane. What he'd like to consider doing that he's talked about, and I think it would improve the viability of use of our airport, is to get it down from a 600 down to a 400, which is a 200, which he mentioned. And the best way to accomplish that, to get rid of the trees so we don't have a problem with the DOT inspections, and be done with it, is clear cut some of those trees down there. And I think it will help his cause, other than there's a 69 kV power line that cuts across there. I think that's a 69 kV.
230 kV, power line.
Not the big one, I'm talking about the one that crosses by the pond. That's 230, I think that's a 69. I think it's an old 69 they got
Where
left.
is that?
No, it's 230.
Where at?
Well, ours is 230 out there on 100. Seminoles is the big verticals.
Yeah, so which one, you're talking about?
Where's it at, Scott?
By the pond, on the way out, pond's on your left. Those are not near high enough.
It's the same one that crosses the new entrance road.
Yeah. They're the old rusty, now they've made them concrete poles, crossing Airport Road right there at the pond.
Yeah, that's transmission.
But I don't think that's 230 kV. I think that's a 69 or, sure doesn't look high enough. But anyway, regardless of what it is, we've got that line interfering, but I think the tree line can still be cut back. And the only reason I've got this on the agenda is to find out what was our time frame. Were we waiting on the fence to be done, or can we start cutting anytime now? Because now,
Well,
you've got the hurricane coming and it's gonna be saturated in there, I'm sure, for a little bit.
so the forestry master plan, I'm not sure where that area landed within that plan as far as what was to be cut. And I'll have a copy of it with me.
Well, I'm talking about cutting out this part in here.
Yep.
Back a ways. But we were gonna cut some up here to kind of showcase, I thought, it was gonna be biomass.
Refer to that picture.
I have one question.
Yeah.
This area that you want to cut is defined because of the length of the proposed runway, not the current runway. Is
Yeah,
that
she's
correct?
making a good point.
Well, the trees that are up here, every year it seems like you'll find one. That one's too tall and then we gotta go cut it. So what we did over here, when a previous board member was here, we went ahead and clear cut back in here. He needed to do some forestry harvest. So we opted to take some of these trees out here, and when we do that, we don't have to mess with anything for the next 10 years as far as tree growth into the approach path.
Oh, what's the timeframe though on number 9, that extension?
It isn't gonna happen, is what Bill's telling you, but
This is a better one to look at because it shows the existing RPZ.
But his approach that he'd like to do, I think could be complemented if we take some of those trees out.
I think your airport master plan is gonna tell you exactly what height the trees are and.
Yeah, but that's down.
Your RPZ right now doesn't have
An issue,
hardly any
does it?
trees in it.
To be clear, the RPZ is not connected to Part 77 approach clearances.
Oh, it isn't?
No, I mean, the RPZ is really about the ground plane.
Right.
So it won't be
Part 77 extends beyond the RPZ.
the approach out 3 miles from
Yeah,
here.
Okay,
Okay, or 4 miles.
Yeah,
It's like 40-1 or something like that.
yeah.
Well, I'd just like to take out some of those trees there so that we don't have to keep coming back.
I mean, I agree with that, actually.
Most of that stuff, though, is oak. Now, there's
Biomass,
a
right?
few pines in it. You know, I think the last time we had any of the hardwoods cut, it was all chip. It just,
Yeah, that's about all you could.
which,
I don't know there's a demand for chips anymore,
It kind of comes and goes, whether there's a market for it.
or the biomass, and I don't know if that's still,
functional in Gainesville
Yeah.
anymore or not, so.
Well, no action needs to be taken tonight. I just don't want to lose sight of it. Really like.
Because it's not worth cutting a small amount on its own, right?
Well, that's why I'm thinking if they're gonna
You almost
be,
have to entice somebody to come and
Right.
do it.
They would do it for free and.
but you were talking about doing a cut up here by
Well,
100.
I've actually experienced having to pay.
Yeah.
I doing
It's
a
not
cut
a
up
lot,
here by
but you-
100, I
yeah,
think, to kind
sometimes
of get a
they're like,
little setback from the road, kind of
That's for the site
showcase.
prep, that's not a timber sale.
Maybe put a land for lease sign up there or something, I don't know.
Well, actually, what we're
I guess I'm
talking,
still confused about the push, because like you were saying, you've got the current, you call it RPZ? The current one, there's not really an issue with it. This one is really based on if you extended the runway, but you said
Right,
it's
we wouldn't go
not gonna
back as
happen.
far
you
as
can
I
forget that one.
Right.
Right.
So if it's not gonna happen, what's the push for the?
So the glide slope, when
One
you're
thing you
coming in,
can't see on here,
Yeah.
it's not depicted, is the approach surface, which is separate from the RPZ. It goes out like 5,000 feet or something.
Yeah,
up here. 10,000,
it goes up
okay.
10,000 feet.
At like a 40-1 ratio.
Right.
Slow, yeah.
So Scott, I think he has a great point, is that to help our chances of getting a lower approach, you want to remove the obstructions in the vicinity. So I think he's got the right idea, it's just not, it's hard to visualize using this.
it's the vertical.
Yeah.
And so,
So what you're saying is this is really all based on wanting to lower from 600 to 400?
I've already had,
I think it would complement it, is what I'm saying.
yeah, and the tower that they wanted to, they're proposing to raise across the street from the RV park. I think that's detrimental as well.
What's the tower for?
I think it's cell.
It's a 5G tower.
Yeah, it's right there, triple S plumbing.
Well, they got plenty of land, they could do it in a place that's not a factor for the runway, couldn't it?
I asked the FAA team to look at it and told them what my concerns were. I said, if it's not a concern for the approach, I'm less concerned about it. It's, I think, is that 2 miles from the airport?
Where they proposing to put it at?
Well, there's a current tower there.
Existing, they want to increase the height.
Oh, increase the height, oh.
Correct.
When you go past Orange Blossom on 21B, where you normally turn, keep going straight ahead, and where the plumbing
Triple
place
S.
is and the well,
Yeah.
South of the land.
that tower right there.
Yep.
It's an existing cell tower, they just want to raise it, or is that what they want to do, is get it higher?
They do, and I don't even know that it will affect the straight-in approach. There's circling. A couple of you know what I mean? But when you circle the land in a different runway and you have a tower sitting out there, the FAA commonly will not tell the tower no. They'll just change the approach to make them deconflict. Well, that's detrimental to us.
Make it higher.
But would it conflict with the published RNAV approach as it is?
I don't know.
Because you know the
Looking at
RNAV
it.
is designed in a T fashion
Right.
to come into final approach to the runway.
That's what
Maybe-
I'm sure of, yeah.
You guys would obviously know better than I would, but the FAA was telling me that the tower was already over 400 feet previously. Is that the case? Was it taller? It fell down?
You know, I looked at something, trying to think where I can
Not that I
see
know
it. But I think it is pretty tall already. I want to say it's 150 or 200 feet. I'll
Now,
have to look at it.
there's another tower closer to town. I don't think it's Clay Electrics, but it's another one. I don't think it's the one at the cemetery.
That's the
But
city's.
there was one that was, I think it was, I'll take it back. I think it was a Clay Electric tower that got raised.
The tower in question was approved at 410 feet.
In 2010,
above
wasn't
sea
it?
level in 2010.
Yeah.
At some point between then and now, a part of the tower was damaged and the tower was reduced in height. And they're now asking, the current request is at the same tower location to go back up. And I don't, my phone is struggling here. I can't click on what the new proposed elevation is.
4 something.
Yes,
It's in the mid 4s.
yeah, it's a little higher than the previous 410, but.
Yeah.
And this, I mentioned this earlier, I'm just gonna say this is kind of like a donut hole for the FAA. There's not a lot of positive coordination between the people that are reviewing obstructions. They have a pretty narrow mission. Is it an obstruction for the existing condition? But it's been my experience that they do not have a mandate to look at the master plan. They don't talk to the people within FAA that are publishing approaches to say, hey, are you guys planning to reduce the minimums and improve their approach? Would this be a problem? It's a donut hole, there's a gap there. And that's why historically, this doesn't happen a lot, but that's why Craig has engaged the Orlando staff to try to bring the other 2 parts of FAA together and say, hey, you know, before you would just blindly approve a tower at 460 feet, is it gonna affect the existing approach? Would it affect the improvement of the existing runway 5 GPS approach? I don't know that it gets any traction. They may still approve the tower because they only have certain rules and regulations. They may not be able to deny a tower for an approach that doesn't exist yet,
Right.
if that makes any
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It goes for them, yes.
But I will remind the board too, some of you remember this, I believe it was in this general direction, and I believe it was, well, another cell phone company, the name's not important.
Verizon.
Yeah, they tried to put one up, you guys got involved, this is in the Maria timeframe.
Correct.
And just through talking to Verizon, you were able to say, hey, listen, can you do it somewhere else? And they're like, oh, okay, we'll go down the road a half a mile, we can do it down here. And they were able to accomplish their same coverage goal from cell phone improvement, but be further away from the airport and not impact.
They work with us, absolutely.
Going on 18.
Information everywhere.
That's the one,
So,
that's where they moved it to.
Yeah,
yeah, so I don't know if their window is open for that here, but Craig has started that process and you gotta hope for the best. If I could go back to the original question though, give you a little more history. Couple of timber board members before, or maybe one before, two before, the strategy was, hey, we're gonna be clearing, X number of acres. And then you would say, if they're coming, let's give them some more work to do to entice it, make it a little better. Let's do some work around the RPZ. So Scott, I don't know if what you're suggesting is, you're not talking about a standalone
no,
project, but the next time there is.
supplemental, that's what I
Next time
want.
there is a timber activity.
Right.
Let's clear
take
some of it
stuff
out.
At the RPZ,
Yeah.
it adds more work to the availability of the contractor, makes it more enticing, and it takes care of future approach problems. And that's been
That's
very
exactly what I'm
effective for
talking
you
about,
guys
yeah.
in the past.
There-
Two birds with one stone.
Just off the top of my head, there may be a possibility after we spray this stuff that you can still have someone come in and chip, which is a nice
Oh,
thing, but.
you're concerned about the tree farm and cutting before we do,
Well,
right?
that is, but I'm also trying to figure out how to make it happen.
Yeah.
And
Well,
I was thinking,
Scott just
what could
doesn't
you
want to
add
forget about
to?
this area the
Yeah.
next time some tree work is
Well, I
done.
was gonna say, I could still investigate whether someone, once we've had the stuff die like we need it to all the way down to the roots, somebody still might be interested in chipping it.
Okay.
And that might be a
That might be their
possibility.
mobilization right there.
Yeah, if I can get past this part, I can, maybe I can
Well, and this
look
isn't
at
critical.
that,
There's
yeah.
nothing,
But it makes sense.
there's no obstructions in the way right now, but I just thought, I remember we were talking about by the new road, there's some cross hatching there. There was some up there that y'all talked about going in and removing.
Yeah, that was talked about.
So this and this, and this and this, didn't know what the time frame was, but I want to do, and I do want to come back further. It doesn't do any good to cut out 4 trees over here. What we're looking for is long-term establishment of grass that can be mowed in here, and I'm making my own work or whoever's work. But once we get it established, we can maintain it, and then we don't have that glide slope problem with the DOT guy, because the trees are further out, and when they mature, even the big pines at 70 feet don't interfere ever again. We just gotta keep the scrub out of there, so. I think Bill said it best, it's just when you have something, add this, make this supplemental to it, but I don't want it to get forgotten. And I think it'll help Craig's cause, maybe it won't, but I don't think it can hurt.
It cannot hurt, yeah.
Terry, would you just check back on the forestry master plan? See where that area falls out, because,
Did he leave a key?
there were several areas that were designated that Carlton had put together for us.
Yeah, the limitation would be that because it is oak, that would be,
Yeah.
yeah. But, I'd like to check into,
If we
where we
don't,
are on somebody who might chip or do something like
if we
that.
don't even get anything for it, the fact that they take it out for us is a
Right.
benefit to us. And hopefully they make money in other places around the airport, and we just give them that for their labor or their efforts.
Okay,
That's all I got.
all right, very good.
I don't know if I can just add something to that real quick, and I don't know if it would help or not, but if it comes to that point where we're doing that, I know when you're standing at the end of 5, looking back in that direction, like when the DOT guy was here just recently, and he's pointing out when he's doing his, when he's checking that, you can kind of see, there was a specific couple that were that are starting to peak a little more than the others, and that's probably what y'all are.
That's what I'm
about.
saying.
And if we're able to.
Instead of piecemealing
find
it.
where be able to mark those trees so you know about the distance you're going back. I mean, I don't know.
Good
if that
idea.
means- You know what I'm saying? Whereas if we stop short of those, then you still see that one that's still peaking back there, I don't know if that would help as far as giving.
And I guess the simplest way to put it is, one of the guys that was here before, he'd get with DOT, the guy'd say this one and this one this year, and he'd go out there and cut those 2 trees. And then next year you go out and try to find 2 more.
Yeah.
And we were having to get to the point we'd have to fly a drone over it, stand in the forest and try to figure out, okay, is this the tree? Is that the tree? Cut them all.
Why not just,
Cut out or carve a cutout,
yeah.
solves that problem.
All right, we'll look into that with a master plan and figure out where to incorporate that.
Okay.
All right, moving on down, Ms. Hall.
Okay, so I was going to give y'all an update. So we've already talked about doing spraying, we've got it budgeted. I tackled doing the posting. I've already had a legal request for bid sent out, and associated with that is the bid documents, which has the scope and specifications of the project and everything, and I put myself on there as the contact person. It's set up for them to email bids to me. Those bids will be looked at on the 17th. I was gonna have it here. I don't expect there's going to be a lot of people around or anything, but
How many
that's
do you
what I had
expect
said.
again?
One or two. I mean, it's just not something that a lot of people.
It's not a big job and there's not many operators maybe.
There's not many people who are doing the aerial spraying, yeah. And the other limitation was that I specified that they had to be with the state of Florida, approved by them. So basically, I was working with Carlton. He gave me what the state uses. I used all that information to determine what the insurance requirements would be, how to do the scope of the work, how to have things in there to cover, the airport and everything. And so he provided all that to me. I also had access to the silvicultural, the word we were talking, silvicultural contracts, which are very different than what Jim Taylor deals with or whatever. So he requested that I give him something which would really help us out a lot, because he wouldn't have to spend as much time trying to research or whatever. So I gave him a document that he could use as a framework for a contract. And so that is in his hands. He's supposed to be looking at that and providing that back to me, so that when we award the contract, we will have this document ready to go. So let me see, was there other stuff? So basically that was it. So I felt, even though I'm having to start from scratch on how to do it, because I didn't really have any other examples or anything, I feel comfortable that by using the stuff that Carlton uses for the state of Florida, for the forestry stuff, that we've got everything covered to have the work done and be comfortable with liability and everything. And then, of course, Jim's going to verify that with what he's looking at. So my question, I guess I'm not familiar with all the requirements and everything, but so I was advised, after talking with Charlie as the city manager and also with Bo Wright as the assistant, that, do the legal, go ahead and post it. And beyond that, though, I'm not real sure what the requirements are, because it's not,
Right.
it's a special, it's almost a special
It's like
provider
sole
thing.
source.
You already have a number in your mind as to what this will be, cost-wise?
Yes, and then that was part of my proposal, that we looked over that and we talked about, and that's what's budgeted.
Right, but I think you're getting into the statutes, right?
Yeah,
As
and
to,
I don't think that it's really clear about, like, okay, say, I don't think I'm gonna get 3 bids. But I don't know that it was specified that I had to have 3 bids. The biggest thing was that I had to post it,
there are also requirements for sole source.
That's what you're talking about here, is the sole source.
What's that?
This is not a sole source. I don't think this would meet that standard.
There's
If
other,
you only get one or two bids?
She said she'll probably have
the only problem is the other one I knew of was not a state of Florida one. And then I've tried to look at the ones that they have listed, that do the aerial work and stuff, and a lot of them have to do with more like vegetation, like invasives and
So your
things like that.
question is, what if
or
you only get one
crops.
response?
Right,
I can give you some input on that.
okay.
So we put a bid out for the corner of the China Chef to be demolished. And it went out publicly in the newspaper.
I did that,
Yep. And I think we had it you can do it, you can actually do it for like a week or 2 weeks.
Right.
You can, I didn't realize you could do that. So we received 2 bids. I wanna say one was something like 70 or 80,000, and it was like 39. Well, I saw that. I mean, I was actually on vacation, but I saw that and knew. I mean, I used to work bids with my previous job, and it's always apples to apples, no matter what, because people can hide into words and descriptions, and it's got to be precise. And I even talked to Bo about this. We want to know exactly what we're getting. So as I looked further, the inexpensive one wasn't going to haul away the asphalt and all that.
Oh, goodness.
So that means we got to do it. Right? So these are additional costs that you may not. You think they're gonna do it, but it wasn't included in the actual.
You gotta have it
Oh, it wasn't in the
specified.
scope.
So be really careful.
Yeah.
When and we received 2, so guess what? We're gonna put it back out for bid. And you want 3, and we hope we get 3, but I'm gonna be really tough on it because I wanna know exactly what it's gonna cost us. I don't want any surprises.
Right.
Especially in anything big like that, you can have all this hidden costs, and you're like, well, now we gotta find that money somewhere.
Billy, you
Right.
had a comment?
Well, because this is so specialized, just my 2 cents, if you've advertised it publicly, you've met the statutory requirement. If you get one bid and it doesn't have any exclusions or exceptions, and it's within your budget, I think the board has the prerogative to award that contract.
Because you have advertised it.
Yes,
And I'm familiar with it too. There's not really
you have a
any,
level of expertise.
and we have specified in the scope that there will be nothing beyond that. They will give one price per acre. That is the cost. That is it.
As long as they don't put conditional statements
Yeah.
or somehow corrupt their bid by saying, if there's 3 moons in a month, my price gets doubled, as long as there's nothing wacky like that. I don't think because it's so specialized, I think you could proceed with one bid.
Well, and the verbiage that we have in the contract, it definitely spells out, this is the cost, this is the only cost. You will bid it on
This is the scope of work, period.
per acre basis, and that is it. That is all you will be paid.
It's a pretty simple job,
It
isn't it?
is, yeah, I mean, it's basically, they're done in a day.
Yeah.
You're already working from a pre-qualified list of vendors.
Yes.
Because they've met the state's requirement.
Exactly.
To be pre-qualified, so I think that helps your case that, you're not taking chances on somebody that may or may not be able to do the work. They do this work.
Right.
They're pre-qualified.
That was my concern, yes.
Now, if you get a price that's twice your budget,
Oh, no.
then the board still has a choice of it. You could still award that contract, but you'd have to decide whether that was wise or not.
Well, here's where I'm at, is that we only meet once a month. And it's gonna be very hard to make decisions. And then, you have something happen, and then you have to go to the next month and everything. Is there any way to approve the awarding of the contract, say, by, as long as it's not more than 5% of what we've already agreed to in the budget? Could we do that? I mean, that's what I'm wondering. Can there be a pre-approval of allowing me to award the bid as long as we don't exceed what the budgeted amount was by more than 5%?
I think that falls into kind of like the truck kind of thing, does it not? Was that approved as a part of the budget process?
A maximum, whatever that maximum is. Why couldn't you do, when is the bid opening?
17th.
And is it at a certain time of the day? They have to be in by a certain?
Yeah, it has to be in by 10 a.m. On the 17th.
Why couldn't we just have a special meeting that night or something?
That's what we would do. We'd
Have the bid opening in the
We have a
daytime
special meeting anytime. I've already had like 2 in the last
Yeah.
2 weeks.
and just
Right, because that
convene
was
real
my
quick
concern,
and
yeah.
just do
And it
that.
could be a 5-minute quickie, and
Yeah.
you approve and you move on. But
That would be fantastic.
It's with all of them voting on it, and it's not holding you so accountable for that decision, or even Craig.
And we've done that.
But can we have a quorum present?
Well, that's
Or
my
do you-
basket
yeah.
weaving night on the 17th. I don't know if I'll, no.
Okay, so that
So
answers
this
the
is
question.
actually 10 This is actually, I have it set at 10
Right.
a.m.
Let's look
we
at our
could do
calendar.
that.
If we could do it that evening, you're right. I
Or
didn't
if
think
there's
about
enough
that.
of
Yes, we
us
could do it
that are
evening.
retired or like, that are available, Bobby works, depending upon his schedule. We
Right.
just need a quorum.
Right.
And they can review it, and
17th of this month?
17th of this month, yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
in November, I said.
No, I don't want
After
to
next.
switch the next month. That's what the whole
No.
thing is I'd like to be able to.
Well, why couldn't you have the bid opening? We can be here for the bid opening, I guess.
Well, I can't be here for the bid opening. I got a Friends of Keystone Heights, we're meeting, that's our meeting,
What time is it?
10 o'clock. that morning.
Well, that's next week.
Is it too far for you to come back at noon or
Oh, no, no,
1
no,
or something?
no, we could do it, we could do noon if you want to, if that fits with your schedule.
Do
We
one,
could have it,
do 1 o'clock.
1
Do
o'clock?
lunch.
Okay,
I mean, it's hot dog Thursday too, so
well, that's definitely what we need to do.
We'll meet for the hot dog.
1 o'clock. do
Okay,
that?
perfect, perfect.
All right,
perfect,
so
okay.
we'll put,
So you'll, somebody will send out, something about that?
I'll have to do an agenda one.
yeah. You'll have to publish it, it'll be, and for a special meeting, it's just whatever's on that agenda, that's all we cover. We're
That's
not
right.
doing anything else, it'll just be that one item,
Yeah.
okay?
Thursday, October 17th at 1 PM.
Sir?
Right back here.
Yes,
Right?
all right?
Great, thank you, I really appreciate that, I wasn't sure how to.
Yeah, that's pretty easy.
Great.
We'll all come in and vote no, and we'll be done with it.
So, yeah, hey, it meets budget, whatever it comes out. All right, anything else, Ms. Hall?
No, I think that is it.
All right.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Appreciate
Thank you for the update. Craig, airfield maintenance report.
Yeah, it's just informational. There's nothing that's above my ability to, my purchasing policy minimum, but, during our budgeting process and, the tenants had several requests for the corporate hangar septic system never functioned to my knowledge, right, Scott, since it was purchased or built?
I don't think it was ever activated or implemented,
Yeah.
I should say. It was built and never, no toilets were connected, no basins were connected. It just never was activated or implemented.
So, I'm just letting everyone know that we are working on multiple projects. Rob usually goes out and gets a quote, and then, we meet with the contractor and determine what the costs are. But Hangar E septic, that hangar's been up for what, 20 years now, almost? Is that? No, 15 years.
15 years, I think.
09.
And so to rerun that septic line was $2,000. One of the corporate hangar needs drywall repair. They're working on that this week. That's $1,500. The corporate hangar septic that I mentioned first, that's going to be $4,900. So I just want people to be aware that, we're working on things, but it's getting expensive already, and we just got started in the year.
But we talked about on the corporate, the caveat is, or I don't know if that's the right word, the airport authority would get that activated, but it would be up to the tenants to install their own toilet.
Oh, yeah.
Our contractor, if they want to do a wall in there or whatever, that's on them. That's their dime, because that's not a requirement of those hangars.
I have a quote for a new well out in front of MHD. That's in the realm of $40,000 because it's,
5 was
yeah.
one of the bids that we got. It's crazy, which
Just to drill them.
It's because it's a
it's
public,
because it's public, and I don't know, this well got grandfathered in with this project, I guess, or whatever, but anyways, the reason we need to look at that is because right now, everything on that end of Rockland and any other, well, mainly it's all Rockland
two
right there,
major
and
hangars.
ESG, it's off of our only well, where the little Snoopy house is, there on the corner. We had a backup, we had 2 feeds, but then we had the issue with the older well. So we had to abandon that, do all the legal stuff with the health department. The whole process that we had to pay to get done. So we have not put another well in. We were thinking, actually, we had budgeted last year for like 16.5. Residential well, maybe 8,500, 10,000 at most. And, but then when we had someone come out and give us a bid, then the magic question is, okay, is the public going to be drinking this water? Or are you watering grass? And it requires a lot of filtration, it requires a lot of chemical treatment, and so.
Fence around
they
the,
had to do a lot of
Fence,
bacterial
yeah, it's crazy.
and engineering. You gotta pay an engineer to stamp it. I think you said that was like $5,000.
No, that was 10 grand just for the
10,
engineer to sign the permit.
Yeah. We just need to buy one of those rubber stamps.
Bill, you're in the wrong.
Probably get that at Office Max, about $5.
You're a PE.
Say, I can do that.
It's to make sure that it's in compliance with
Yep.
all.
So it's just a review by the engineer?
Yeah.
That or not.
How much is it worth to you?
Well, that's what the first quote has in it, is
But that's only one bid too. We gotta get two more.
right, that's why.
It'll come down some, but it's still gonna be up there. It's gonna be more than $30,000 easily.
100% would be more than that.
And he based the well size on the amount. He wanted to know how many toilets. And I think he said the way it works is they gotta see if 60% of the toilets were flushing, what's the water flow required to do that?
Yeah, it's all kind of stuff.
It's crazy.
So I guess the point is, what I was getting at is, we've also already talked about and approved a new operations truck for the airport. That's gonna be $45,000. And people say it got to be a bit of a, I don't know what word I want to use, but tenants and other people saying, oh, you guys have all this money in the bank. I'll tell you, I can think of 3 projects right now that are over $100,000 that we need to have done.
That's right, that's right.
So I just don't think when people go and make statements like that they understand the full scope of what it takes to keep this airport operational and write checks for projects that
Right.
Bill's company likes to send the.
Hold on now. All grants on it.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's all I have.
All right, Charlie's not here tonight, but I'll let Mr. Dagenet know that your recommendations for the revisions to the application for board seats was approved. They appreciated the input, so Charlie will be implementing those into that application form. So that was a good thing. Anything else, Mayor, that,
It's been crazy. We've had, I think we have like 4 workshops planned between now and the first part of December. I've got 2 next week. And again, the strategic planning, there's just been not a lot done with that in the last several years. So we're focusing on some pretty big projects that I want to get into the weeds with before we can honestly plan. I think we need to know a lot of information before we know where we want to put those in a long-term plan. Things like the parks plan, I don't know if y'all know, but we are getting ready to redo the entire tennis court downtown. Also, the basketball court is gonna be freshened up. A new pickleball court is gonna be fixed. There's problems with it apparently. And some stuff that's done down at the beach, equipment replaced, and picnic tables. It's a little over $400,000 to do those items. And we actually got quotes too on the deal with the tennis court and the basketball court, stuff like that, through the county. Like they did some kind of they call it piggybacking, did other county things that they were doing. So those will start January 1st, which is really exciting. Again, the deal with the corner, the goal with that is to get it leveled. I'm feeling now that I want to move forward as soon as possible. So that it's just vacant, and we're just waiting for DOT to come in and do their part, which is create that whole new lane and redo that corner before we go with the rest of the Lawrencegate project, which is to make things prettier downtown. Let's see, we're gonna freshen the city hall up with new paint, new furniture, make it a much more inviting space, which is gonna be exciting. And I actually introduced a new project last week that I'm looking at our future with infrastructure and tourism, which Save the Lakes is updating us. You probably saw it online. Things are moving, the pipeline is finished. They've made the turn, and the next thing is, once they get things through, I guess, the filtration plant, I guess, they turn on the pumps and start testing them as early as December, which they're like several months ahead of time. So when those lakes start getting back up to where they were in the 80s, we're gonna see a whole different situation.
Maybe this weekend.
Yeah, tomorrow.
But I think what folks forget about and get complacent about is it's been 50 years since they've seen that level of folks being there on the weekends because it was a vacation destination. And what I'm trying to do is look ahead, and I looked at our businesses just in the corner of downtown, on the 100 all the way down 21 to the Pavilion, for example, I looked at 51 businesses that are brick and mortar. 23% of them are hair and beauty. The other 24% are like insurance office, attorney's office, and then I think we have another 12% or so that's health type, CVS, whatever. But like hardly no retail. I think it was like 12% retail. And I feel like when you have tourism, they have needs, and you want people to stop spending money. So I've come up with a concept to create a city market. We have 2 pieces of land in town that we could potentially look at, like little cute she sheds that the city owns and rents them out, which I've seen other cities do this. And it helps those folks that are small startups to afford that versus something that's a brick and mortar. Plus, reignite the old farmer's market. We have a pole barn that would be perfect for that. It would give us also at least another 25 to 30 parking spaces downtown, which we need desperately, and potentially renovate a building to become the Heritage Museum, Heritage Commission's museum. So they have stuff in 4 different areas. So it's a big ask, but it's something that's going to be one of my big thing I'm going to chase next year. So again, we have these projects and strategic planning, and I think we just have to come to a decision on what those things are going to look like down the road. Pretty exciting though.
Very good. I'm just waiting to see you in a hard hat and safety goggles and a sledgehammer on that corner building.
We're gonna have that new fishing pier too.
Okay, so
Yes.
fishing here, he was telling us last night, so we've already given him chunks of money toward it.
On Geneva at the beach.
Keystone Beach.
Yeah, in Geneva, and it will be ADA friendly. So he was telling us, I think last night, he told us, I can't remember what he told us, Scott told us last night.
Yep.
But there's already plans in place, they're just waiting for the DEP to give them some nod on certain things, especially with the removal for the trees and all, they're in the water. And they're just waiting for that piece of it. They're all over the place trying to get them to tell them, give them the head and say, yeah, go ahead and move forward. And apparently the tree service they talked to can take it out of the bed like within 2 weeks.
They said they could go out and
They're gonna buy it from them.
go out in water as deep as 3 feet deep too.
Yeah.
Which surprised
So
me.
it just prevents
good.
hazard stuff. But yeah, the pier is beautiful, what they've come up with, and showing that, and kind of how it's gonna go, which is kind of just past the bathroom as you're coming out of the park, and then straight down. He actually already put flags on exactly where it's gonna be.
It will be very nice to have them back again.
I was funny, we went to their meeting a few weeks ago, and their next big goal now is to raise the bridge. I was like, wow, that's pretty aggressive, But they said, yeah, that's something we're gonna chase.
Raise the 21 bridge?
Yep.
Brooklyn.
Wow.
Because even.
So the Save Our Lakes are gonna change the Save Our Houses.
Well, Charlie was saying-
They're all gonna be underwater.
Charlie said right now, you can go with a jet ski under there, but you cannot with a boat. It's too.
Well, when it was the old wooden bridge, apparently, I didn't know this, but when they came back with a new concrete bridge, they lowered the level of the bridge, which I don't think anybody at the time really thought about. But they snuck that one in on you.
It's really interesting. So it's exciting to see, there's a lot of unknown, But then there's a lot of infrastructure needs that we need to be looking at as well. So that's a whole nother project that somebody's gonna take on. That's it from me.
Parking garage.
All right, thank you, Mayor.
They would have a fit.
I have one last thing, and I think Bobby had something as far as comment. As of October the 2nd, Craig Kuhn has been with us for 1 year.
Should have bought a birthday cake.
Yes.
He's had a tough year too. Listen, he hit the ground. He literally came to work on the 20th of September. And he officially signed his contract on October the 2nd with Jim Taylor and I in the office. So, Craig, I appreciate all you've done this year.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There have been some huge obstacles, and one of the things that y'all may not know so much about, unless you're out here a lot, Craig has developed a rapport with our FAA representatives, and I think Bill can speak to this as well. But not only that, but FDOT. And here's the thing. I mean, it's pretty amazing when you can call the FAA, or somebody can call the FAA, Craig, and get an answer. Or at least get a call back, get a call back. And I think that's because he has shown them that he is a professional and he knows what he's talking about. He digs in, finds out.
Now we're really getting down.
But,
No, he doesn't like this. I mean, I'm having to twist his arm just to get him to show up for just an event somewhere, but he did come to the Northeast Florida Economic Development Corporation annual meeting. So, but anyway, Craig, you've done a great job. I appreciate all you've done and what you've already got in the plans for this coming year. This fiscal year, we've got a lot of things budget-wise and just some other things we've talked about, and we'll bring those to the board, eventually as well. So thank you, Craig. Glad to have you aboard, and we appreciate you. Bobby?
Yeah, I'll just piggyback on that real quick. It just, again, I commend him, on what he's been able to do for this past year. And I think, going back to when we had the interview process, and for all of us that were part of that process, I think one of the things that really stood out was the fact that he had experience, previous experience in this field. So, which is, to me, is worth more than all the gold in the world, because he's seen and experienced things, and I tell him all the time that I appreciate some of the ideas that he's come up with that him and I have discussed, and he's helped keep me on task on a few things, and given me, some good heads up on things sometimes whenever I might be slipping backwards. So I appreciate everything that he's done, and I always feel too it's important, just as a reminder for all of us as board members, that from my understanding as a board member, that our job is to provide him with whatever tools he needs to make his job easier and to accomplish the task that he has. And also, I think, I know we have to set boundaries and we have to keep him within those bounds, but I think him, having all the tools that he needs, I think is always going to, that's just going to help advance this airport, as we all move forward together and all. And know there would be a learning curve, and coming from an area like he did that was so much different than this area, I think he's been able to learn, hit the ground running and learn a lot really fast. Like basically, like the saying is drinking from a fire hose. Yeah. So it's much appreciated, and I think we all feel the same. But what I had here that I wanted to bring up was about the gate security situation, and we've had this discussion in the past, and from what I understand, this particular incident has already been dealt with. It was, I believe it was on possibly August 23rd, and had a tenant that was looking at selling an item, and whether it was aircraft or whatever, and had given the potential buyers the pass to come in, or they had the information to be able to come in and access the airfield, access the golf cart, and were just kind of riding around, walking around and all. And fortunately, nothing bad came of it, but of course, it alerts security cameras and it alerts personnel. The thing is I know even though we say, or we've, dealt with it or had to control it, and there's been, some of these occasions in the past, what I'm concerned about as far as being a security person is eventually going back to what we've discussed earlier with the thing with the tenant, events and all, is the liability that we're, potentially exposed to when we have people that they're leasing, but they're giving out the number, the security numbers or the codes, so these people can come in and out of this air, people that aren't meant, they're not supposed to be here coming in and out freely.
It ended up being a non-event. Scott talked to them. It was a legit thing, but the aircraft owner didn't let us know. And the people let themselves onto the property. Some of the codes that we use to get onto the airport make this airport about as secure as a screen door on your house. I mean, really. You can look up information real quick and know how you're going to get onto the airport if you have any knowledge of aviation at all. I don't want to get into badges and all that crazy stuff, and I have purchased a second keypad like the firm has that connects to cellular. It logs who punches in, what time that was. You can, they hit a call button, it calls you on your phone, you can let them in remotely, and we don't have to always be giving codes out to get onto the airport. But one of the weak points is this walk-through gate. It's battery operated. It's not connected to electricity. I don't even know how you deal with that, but it's not anything you need to make a decision on tonight. I'm just letting people know that our airport, if you have any familiarity with aviation, it's not that hard to get in. And maybe that's the way we want to have it. I don't know.
The security part of the master plan update?
No.
Quick question, I'm gonna have to restart in about a minute and a half. The video, or?
Anything else?
Yeah, I'm gonna wrap it up. It's just that is there something that we need to be looking at to where we have some way of making it a little more firm as far as making tenants to where they don't just freely do that to, and again, increase our chances for liability
Is there
issues.
an airport security plan?
There is. And
Is it being followed?
I think it is.
Yeah, we're following it. It's just when other people outside of us are not following it.
So let's do this. Why don't you and Craig get together, come back with something that if we need to take action as a board, bring that to us. I think there are probably maybe some email to the tenants, hey, don't be giving out codes, that type of thing, so.
That's very common. But yeah,
Well,
Yeah.
it may be common, but maybe it shouldn't be.
I know, I 100% agree with you.
That's why we need to probably have something official come from the board, do it to the tenants, so.
Okay,
All right,
Any results in a file or something if they?
thank you.
all right, we are adjourned at 7:56. Thank you, Mayor, for being here. Frank, thank you for being here.
For the weather.
Guess you had any comments, and I guess I didn't have any comments, and I guess you didn't have any